Do you know what makes you happy? Better question, do you know what makes your dog happy? That's exactly what we're talking about today. Welcome back to the McCann Dogs podcast. What makes you happy?
Oh, I'd say ice cream.
I knew you were going to say candy.
Like spring days, summer days.
Oh.
Yeah.
Spring and summer days. That's a good
Yeah.
one.
Going kayaking.
Yeah, nice.
Hanging out. A lot of outdoor things. Yeah.
Candy.
And
A lot of
candy.
candy.
And candy. And I like pizza too. Yeah. How about you? What makes you happy?
What makes me happy? Oh, you know what? Nature, being outdoors, hanging out with my dogs, watching them in nature. Watching nature in nature. Yeah, all the things. There's probably lots of things that make me happy, but those are the things that sprung to mind when you asked.
Yes, yes. Do you ever wonder what makes dogs happy?
I was just going to ask Honda that and see what he had to say. Hey, Honda, what makes you happy?
Honda says, what makes him happy is a mountain of cheese.
Oh, mountain of cheese and a nice long nap after.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about today is what makes dogs happy. And this is a good chat because a lot of the times what we think as humans might make dogs happy is very counterintuitive.
Right.
And dogs truly deserve to be happy.
They do.
I have met very few dogs that I don't think, what a wonderful creature about, you know, even the ones that are a bit misunderstood and showing some not so nice behaviors.
Right.
They're usually very receptive to being directed and being trained.
Right.
And then they become much happier creatures.
Yes, definitely.
So off the top of your head, what's the first thing that pops into your head when I say, what do you think makes dogs happy?
Dogs like to feel secure in their environment.
Yeah.
They want a place where they know they can relax. They know the rules. They just understand what's going on. Yeah. So security and consistency.
Yeah, I would
within
agree
the
with
household.
That 100%. Yes. And a lot of the times that is really hard to come by.
Yes.
It's really hard to come by. So let's talk today about some of the things that people can do to make sure that they are actually tickling their dog's happy bone.
Right.
Is that an expression?
I don't know. I think you
just
just made something up. You made something up.
That happens from time to time.
Yes.
Alrighty. So a happy dog. A happy dog is a good dog. No, you know what? So looking at a dog who is like bouncing and joyful and having a good time, what's the emotion that elicits in you?
It makes me happy as well.
Yeah.
It makes me happy as well, unless the dog is happy and bouncing and out of control.
Okay.
So if I walked into someone's house and their dog was happy and bouncing against me and knocking things out of my hands and knocking me over and covered in muddy paws, that would not make me happy.
Okay. So what you're saying is it's all about balance.
Yes.
It's all about making sure that happy is somehow directed and not contained in that we're containing the happiness, but contained in that we're directing the behaviors that surround the happiness.
Right. Yes.
Of being bouncy and barky and happy. So, in terms of, you said security and consistency. So let's drill down on those for a minute because they're going to lead directly to the direction that we give our dogs, right? So what does security mean to you when you say, dogs like to feel secure?
Security, I think, means to a dog is they know they're going to get fed.
Okay.
They know there's food. They know they're safe. They can relax in the environment. They're not worrying about suddenly, a child jumping on their head.
Oh,
they're not. They're not worried that a person's going to come in and just start yelling out of the blue for something they're not sure of what's going on. They want to know there's going to be food. They don't want to have to go out and scavenge and look for food. So they're looking for that security that their needs are going to be met.
Yeah, love that. And it truly is an important thing. I mean, dogs being scavengers, so just because you brought that word up, scavenge, dogs being scavengers, I would think that they would find a lot of joy in scavenging. And they actually do. I mean, we see our dogs being inquisitive about things, looking through things, rummaging through things all the time. And that scavenging nature on their part is something that is part of their makeup. But here's the thing. If you give your dog the opportunity to have a good opportunity outside, for example, to scavenge and look through leaf piles and wander off leash with you, of course, supervised, and, go and sniff in the bushes over here and sniff in the bushes over there. That's good scavenging.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
What are some of the bad scavenging things that dogs do that humans don't tend to like?
Well, stealing food off counters, going into the garbage can, eating rabbit poo.
Ooh.
Yeah. Eating
off the counter.
Right. Yes. Like picking up things they shouldn't.
Yep.
Yes. So those are the things we don't want the dogs to do.
Yeah. And I mean, those are the things that make the humans decidedly unhappy. So I think that that's a really important thing to bring up right off the hop as well. It can't just be about the dog's happiness. It's got to be a mutual thing, right?
Yes.
Security wise, if my dog is a scavenger and I allow that scavenging to happen in the house, do you think that makes a happy dog?
I think it does make a happy dog,
Okay.
but what doesn't make the dog happy is our reaction.
Yeah.
So now he has people, so we're allowing him to do something, but suddenly the people are angry that he's doing it.
Yeah.
That causes confusion, and that takes away the dog's security.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what? And this is a good angle to go at it from. So a lot of the times this all boils down to the dog just having too much freedom.
Right.
And in that freedom, we think that freedom is such a great thing to give the dogs, right? It's one of the biggest struggles I find that new puppy owners have is when we say that puppy has too much freedom.
Right.
And they have a hard time equating the idea of waiting to offer the dog freedom, waiting until the dog has established rules, waiting until the dog is a little bit older, a little bit more mature, a little bit more reliable in their habits. You've done your training. You know that the dog is going to, for the most part, make good decisions in the house, etc. At that point, freedom is great. But when you have a young puppy who's just learning the rules of the house, that freedom will set you back so much.
It will.
And it will create a puppy who is uncertain of the rules, which then becomes an insecurity a little bit later in life. So it might not necessarily show up with a baby puppy because puppies are a little bit more resilient, right? They're a little bit less, a little bit more devil-may-care about life for the most part. When you have a solidly tempered puppy who is just a normal puppy who's trying to investigate the world, you want to allow that, but not within a structure that allows the puppy to just get away with whatever they want and get into mischief that is going to be frowned upon by the human, right? So if we can set up safe scenarios, that makes things all the more reasonable for the puppy and for the human.
Exactly,
right?
yes.
So
dogs want to be right. Dogs don't set out to anger us.
Yeah, it's true.
But
except for Honda. I can see the evil glint in his eye right now.
But they do. They want to be right. They don't want to be wrong. And often, though, we set them up so they're wrong. And, we get angrier and angrier. But we don't realize it's us making the errors.
Yeah.
It's not the dog. We need to manage that dog better. We need to train our dogs. We need to show them what we want. That way we can all be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it really quite pervasive with people at this point that they allow the dogs to sort of call the shots, right? They bring a puppy home and then they kind of let the puppy dictate what they may or may not want to do.
Right.
And they sort of defer to the puppy. And I don't know what this trend is, but it seems to be something that has really crept into training lately. And I've been finding it more and more over the last few years that they sort of leave it up to the dog to decide what's right for and what's not right for instead of directing the behavior. And that to me is sort of like sending the child out to play and not giving them direction about, crossing the road safely, etc. We would always direct that behavior with our children to keep them safe. It's a little bit more intuitive for people to do that. But when it comes to the dogs, it seems like there's this deferral process that's happening lately. So, in terms of directing behavior, what are some of the things, if you were to bring home a new puppy right now, what are some of the things that you would think would be important to help the puppy figure out how to be secure in this new home, how to not get into trouble, how to follow the rules, how to be a good teammate, a good member of the family?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is be using my crate. That way, when I can't supervise the puppy, the puppy's not making these errors.
Yeah.
Because what you let what you don't prevent, you permit. That's
Yes.
Instructor Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you don't prevent, you permit. So if I'm washing dishes and my little puppy goes in the bathroom and dumps over the bathroom garbage and I don't see it, the puppy goes, this is okay to do.
Yeah.
And then they continue to do it. And I think, oh, they should know not to do that. And I get angry at the puppy.
But why should they know?
But they shouldn't.
No,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. They don't know. All they know is I'm allowed to do this. They don't understand.
Well, and here's the thing, like, we are all creatures of instinct. We
Mm-hmm.
also have intellect, so we can override our instincts in certain situations. But dogs are also very intelligent, but I wouldn't say that they necessarily have intellect. And they're not going to just override their instincts for no good reason. They need to be incentivized and taught and directed to do those things. So when a puppy gets into the garbage, that's just an instinct working through them, an instinct to scavenge, right? Or maybe they're curious, or maybe they want to play. All of those things
There's
really
good,
do tie in.
good smells in there. So it's
Yeah,
like, let's
exactly.
investigate these smells.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, some of those things in the human garbage can be a real danger for puppies.
If
So,
they
of
ingest,
course,
yes.
yeah, absolutely. But like that act of getting into the garbage itself is such a rewarding thing for the puppies because we've already established, you know, they are scavengers by nature and they do like to, you know, investigate and tear apart and things. So if there's not a human there to say, hey, that's not acceptable. And early in the process too, right? If you wait until the puppy dumps the garbage and then you say, oh, hey, you're not supposed to do that, there's already been a reward that's happened.
Right. You've missed your timing.
Yeah, absolutely. So when is the ideal time?
The ideal time is just before it happens. So you're watching your puppy closely. You see him looking at that garbage can. You see him moving to the garbage can. He's like about to get there. That's when you want to use an or a quick clap to startle him and get his focus off that back on you.
Yeah, for sure. And the earlier you can do that, the better, because the more invested the puppy gets into that thing, the more it is going to be a challenge. And if they've gotten a reward from getting into the garbage even once, that's going to drive their behavior in the future.
Right,
It truly is. I mean, what they rehearse, you want to come up here, Honda?
He looked
now.
right at me and said, no, I'm sitting with, I'm sitting with Shannon now.
I'm coming over here to sit with Shannon. I'll move my stuff so you can sit with Shannon, buddy. Yeah, he's a good boy. So we were talking about garbage.
Right.
Garbage.
Now, Honda,
Garbage here on the McCann Dogs
I've
podcast.
talked about it before, but Honda likes to sneak into the bathroom garbage.
Oh, no.
Now, he hasn't done it in a long time because of good management on my part.
Yeah.
But many, many, many years ago, he loves to shred Kleenex. And he got into the bathroom garbage when we weren't watching him and shredded a whole bunch of Kleenex.
Okay.
And he loved it and enjoyed it.
I
so
bet.
now it became a goal of his to get back in that bathroom to shred the garbage and shred the Kleenex.
Yeah.
So I got savvy to him, of course, and I watched him, and I'd reprimand when he went towards the bathroom garbage. But as another safety protocol, I got a bathroom garbage with a lid.
Perfect.
So now even if he does go in there, he's not going to go and bother the lid.
Yeah.
But and I'm happy now. I wasn't happy when I went in and there was like 1,000 pieces of Kleenex shredded up all over the place and Q-tips everywhere. But I'm happy now that I've let him know we don't do that, and I've also put some management in there, having a lid on that garbage can so he can't get in there.
Yeah, perfect. And that management step is such an important step, and it's often the step that is lost. And I remember being in this sort of state of flux when I brought my first dog home, Quincy, and I was just starting to learn about dog training, and I remember thinking, like, when do the lessons cross over into real life? And I remember having that confusion because in our systems, we live our life, we go to school, we learn things that we don't necessarily know how to connect with regular life. And then while we're doing that, we continue to live our lives as well. So it seems like it should be the same idea for the dog, right? And you get to a point where there's a graduation of sorts, or, you know, you finally have your diploma, and then everything comes together because you get out there in the real world and you get a job. That's not how it works with dogs, though.
Right.
You know, because they don't have that intellect, right? They don't have that idea that this is investment for the future. they're thinking about life right now,
Right,
right?
yes.
They're just living their best life minute by minute, day by day.
Right,
Honda's
yep.
over here snuggling with me on the couch.
Yep.
Like, this is a wonderful way for a dog to live, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with us, we have to plan for other events. We
Right.
have to think about what we want to do, what we want to learn, etc. So we do use a lot of management with humans, though.
Right.
You know, like you use a playpen with a child, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would use baby gates. You would use, you know, those what are they? The cupboard latches.
Oh, right,
So
yes.
that
So
the kids
kids
can't get
can't
into the
get
cupboard
into the
under the
cupboard,
sink
yes.
and drink
Or-
the Drano.
Or
and-
you'll put in the electrical sockets, you cover them with those little plastic covers so
Exactly.
kids don't
Yeah.
put something in them.
Yeah, so that while they are doing the learning, that
Mm-hmm.
you know, sticking something in a electrical socket is a dangerous thing. They can't accidentally get hurt while they're
Right,
doing
yes.
that
We
because they don't have the understanding yet.
We put training wheels on bikes
Exactly.
to help kids. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
I've likened long lines to
Right.
training wheels
Right.
many times.
Yes.
And I think that is such an important part of the process. And I completely appreciate how there's that disconnect because I remember feeling it, but it's so short-sighted
Right.
to allow bad things to happen over here because the lessons haven't sunk in yet,
Yes.
right? So think about your management strategies. Think about using your crate when you can't supervise. Think about the lid for the garbage can, you
Yep.
know, on the just in case, or just to make life easier, right?
Yep.
We don't always have to make everything a big, huge training issue. If I have a simple problem that I can solve,
Right. Yeah.
why not make my life easier with that?
I
right?
remember we had a cowboy used to love to steal our mittens and scarves and all the fuzzy winter things when Ty was little. And we always kept them by the front door because that's where we got dressed to go out.
That's because she was a cowboy and
Right.
she was all, yeehaw.
So I thought, you know what? I want to have these handy at the back door, but I don't want to set Cowboy up to constantly fail by seeing these fuzzy things. So we bought a little shelf and we called it Mitten Island. And it was a drawer,
Everything has a
actually.
name.
Yeah.
I love
So Mitten Island. You opened the drawer, your mittens, fuzzy hats, fuzzy scarves, all went in Mitten Island. Then it closed.
Perfect.
And so everything was still there, but I was managing Cowboy well. I wasn't dangling these things, right in front of her face. And
Yeah.
anyone with young kids, it's tough coming in. You got little kids, you got dogs. It can be
is.
chaos. So
Absolutely.
I want to manage that front door area to make it more simple for me.
Yeah, most definitely. And the wonderful thing about that management is it allows you to continue to train and it allows you to get to the point where, maybe one day you don't want to have Mitten Island and you want to be able to just throw your mittens and your hats all over the place and not have to worry about
Right.
the dog thinking those are their toys. There's time to train that.
Yes.
If
Yes.
you've got the mittens put away in Mitten Island, you can bring them out when you're ready to train, right?
Exactly,
Bring them
yes.
out and help the dog understand that these things are off limits rather than taking the chance that they discover them on their own and discover that they're fun to play with
Right.
and they're very toy-like, etc. So yeah, these simple management strategies are such an important part of training and they really are underestimated in
Yes.
terms of how important they are. So
And that we did that as Cowboy got older and Ty got older. I've had more time to address this,
Yeah.
but sometimes you pick and choose your battles.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
and after Ty lost one of his pom-poms, I said, you know what? This battle needs to be just put away and shut down. I'll deal with it later.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, sometimes the dog matures to a point where those things aren't of huge
Right,
interest to
yes.
them anymore because now they've gotten into a rhythm because you've set the scene, right? But that's the thing. You have to set the tone.
Right.
And like with Levon right now, he's turned a year old recently, and there's so many things that I'm like, oh, this is great because I set the tone. There was a day of work this week where I was working from home,
Right.
and a lot of the times when I'm working, he'll either just be hanging out, or I'll put him on his place, right? I'll put him on like a bed stay basically, and he just knows to. He doesn't just know. I've taught him,
Right.
So now he knows. He knows to once he goes on his place, he needs
Right.
to remain there. He can get up and turn around if he wants to. He's usually got a bone close by. He can chew his bone. He can do whatever he wants within the confines of that place. He just can't get off the place.
Right.
So yesterday I sat down at my kitchen table to work because it's right beside the windows and it's got a lovely
Right,
view
yes.
of the back of the property and I can watch all the wildlife as I work. Try not to get distracted by it. Anyways, I sat down at at my my kitchen table to work, and Ned, of course, Ned is 8 years old, so he takes his cues quite easily. He just goes and lays down on the couch or in the bedroom on the bed, and Levon put himself on place. And I thought, you know what? And he does that quite a bit.
Right.
And I thought that's what he's gotten used to. When he sees this picture, his needs are met. He's satisfied. You know, I'm not just making him hang out on place all day. I've walked them in the morning. They've had their poops. They've maybe had a little bit of a run. They've eaten, you know, they've drank. They're happy to have a nap at that point. Yes. So I sat down at the kitchen table and he was like, okay, that's my cue. I'm going to go on place.
Right. Yeah. And he felt very secure doing that.
Yeah.
He said, you know what? This is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
All is good when I do this.
Yeah.
Yes. Which made him feel happy.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. And I know people are wondering if the dog puts themselves on place, do you let them get off on their own?
Yes.
So I always make sure that I release after that point. Once he's put himself on place, especially once he's settled on place, I make sure that I hold him to the rules of place as if I had put him up there to begin with. That way there's no gray areas.
Right.
And that's another thing that makes dogs happy. What a good segue.
Exactly.
I didn't even plan that.
Right. Yes.
So gray areas are not happy places for dogs.
No, dogs are black and white learners.
They really are.
Either it's right or it's wrong. Yeah. And that's what they understand.
Yeah,
they're not like people who can generalize these little gray areas. And even gray areas can be tough for people, too.
They can be. Yeah, absolutely. I don't like gray areas. No. My brain is incredibly literal to the point where I'm often laughing at myself at the things that I actually perceive when someone says something. And then I have to do this little like momentary translation. And then, okay, this is what they actually meant. But that's the way my brain works. Right. But yeah, so gray areas for me make me a little chaotic at times.
Right.
You know, I like things to be very well planned. I like things to be very clear. That's how I thrive in that sort of environment. So I can imagine a dog as well. I'm part dog, I think. Yeah. I mean,
Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So yeah, we want to keep everything black and white. Yes. And that's consistency.
Yeah,
and dogs
absolutely
love consistency.
They really do.
Yeah, and they'll gravitate towards the person in the house who's the most consistent with them.
It's true. Yeah, absolutely. Not necessarily the one who's the most fun, not necessarily the one who snuggles them or gives them all the kisses, not necessarily the one who gives them a ton of cookies.
Right.
It's the one who has consistent information for them, because that's the person they can usually communicate with the most, because they learn so quickly how to read us, how to read our body language, how to follow what we're saying and what we're asking them to do if we put in the time. And I would much rather be able to, you know, if I was in a room full of people and say there was like 8 different languages in the room, I would gravitate to the person I could communicate with.
Right.
And I mean, maybe that is somebody who speaks a different language, but they're really good at showing with their hands.
Body language.
And, you know, like it's the clarity that you want to communicate with, right? Oh, I understand what you're saying, what you're asking of me. So you're an easy person to hang around. You're an interesting person to hang around, potentially. Dogs are the same. If we can create a communication system and present it consistently to our dogs, that's going to make them happy.
Yes.
That is definitely going to make them happy. Okay. So we've talked a lot about rules and consistency, and we've talked about management so that we can be consistent in those rules. Let's talk for a minute about needs, because I just finished saying, you know, all his needs are met. So he's content. Yes. He's happy to go and lay down now and have a nap. And who wouldn't be? Sometimes I'm jealous. I'm like, oh, I just did all that work and now I have to do all this work. And you get to go and take a nap.
Take a nap. The dogs, they have it good.
There are some mornings I want to crawl in the crate when I come into work.
So what did you mean by needs?
Yeah, like what kind of needs would a dog have in order to get to that happy spot?
Well, I think they have to be physically exercised, mentally exercised. They need to have been fed and watered. I think those are the biggest needs the dog has. Yeah.
So food and water are quite clear.
Yeah.
Right? What about the exercise part? What does physical exercise look like? Is it me going to the park and throwing 82 tennis balls for my dog?
Actually, 83.
83?
83.
Oh, I've been missing the mark.
No, physical exercise can be a lot of different things. It can be throwing a tennis ball. It can be going on a big hike. It can be doing some parkour type training. there's lots of different ways to physically exercise a dog.
Yeah, definitely.
In general, walking a dog around the block is not physical exercise. It's a little bit of exercise, but it doesn't meet a dog's needs.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's true. Well, and depending on the breed, right? Like some breeds, it might meet their needs.
Like a Pekingese, I think. Yeah. A Pekingese
there you go, with the 6 legs.
With 6 legs, yeah. Would love a rock around the block.
Yeah.
But it probably also likes
a rock around the block.
A rock around the block. It probably likes to do other things too. It probably likes to chase you, maybe. Maybe chase a flirt pole, like a toy on the end of it. So we don't want to fall in the trap of only walking our dogs.
Yeah. So when I lived at my old house, I always used to see there was a woman that walked every morning with her dog. And I would see the dog first because the dog was always walking out ahead. And then I would see the woman. And every single morning, the woman was just buried in her phone as the dog was walking out ahead. And I thought,
I feel bad for those dogs.
That's not the relationship I would want with my dog. So let's talk about engagement for a moment. In combination with the physical exercise, what would that look like to have good needs met in terms of the physical exercise and good engagement from the human?
Well, I want to be in tune with the dog. So I want to be paying attention to the dog and giving them that my full attention.
Yeah.
We all know what it's like to be sitting at dinner and somebody brings out a phone and now they just look at their phone.
Yeah.
And sure, you're getting fed, you're eating, but there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And your dog, it's the same thing. So imagine someone says, "Oh, you want to go for a walk with me?" And you're like, "Yeah, I do." And they just pull out their phone and they just stare at their phone the whole walk. It's a very different experience
than if
the person is engaging with you.
Yeah, it is. And I think that the engagement part is it's the part that I love the most. You know, when I'm just wandering my property with the dogs, I like watching what they're doing. Right. I like seeing when they go, "Oh, where'd she go? Oh, there she is." Okay.
Right. Yep.
Like there are moments where they stop what they're doing to look and see where I'm at, stop what they're doing to look and see where each other's at, run over to each other to see what they're investigating, run over to me to see what I'm doing. Like those moments, even when we're just hanging out together.
Right. Yes.
Those are my favorite moments.
Exactly.
You
yes.
know, like I love observing them and observing what they do, but the moments where they're keenly aware that I'm part of this, even though they're enjoying wandering and sniffing and whatnot, those really make my heart do a little pitter patter.
That's that bond.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I try to do the same thing back to them. I try to make sure that, I'm paying attention to them. And of course I have to do so to keep them safe as well. Right. But I also do things like if they're looking at something or sniffing something for a long period of time, I'll wander over to be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And they always get excited about that. "Oh, you came to investigate what I'm doing. Yeah, look at this." And then they keep sniffing, I'm sure, in their brains. They're just like, yeah, we're just sniffing. What are you doing here? But I interpret it as this wonderful moment.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we can get our dogs to an off-leash area and have them reliable off-leash.
Yeah.
So a person that just constantly walks their dog looking at a phone, the day they take that dog off-leash, the dog has no idea that to interact with the person.
Yeah.
Whereas when I take my dogs off leash at a park, they don't run off. They immediately turn and look at me and say, "What are we doing?"
Yeah. So answer that question. What are you usually doing? When you go to the park, what are you doing?
Well, I usually bring something
for them. Searching for sandwiches.
Yeah, usually we're engaged. We're usually trying to play with them, doing something. It might be I've brought a toy for them to play fetch with.
Okay.
It might be that I'm running and having them chase me. I might be doing some obedience skills, intermittent within all those. So it's a very engaging process. There's I'm going to be looking at things with them. So if they run over to a tree to look at, it's like, "Oh, what's at this tree?" Then I'll run off and they'll chase me. And there's a lot of engagement. And I want to be aware of the environment too. So if I'm with my dog off leash or on leash, I'm all, especially in the city. I live in the city. I'm always scoping to see what's coming around the corner or what gooey piece of pizza is on the, on the sidewalk in front of me. Like if I'm looking at a phone, I'm not doing that. I want to notice, I see people on phones with their dogs on flexies, and the dogs are on flexies running up people's front lawns, going to the bathroom, and the people never look away from their phone, never notice.
Yeah.
So
I've had a few run-ins with flexies with people who are sort of tuned out as that flexie's happening, and it can be so dangerous. Those lines burn like crazy. Like truly, if you are in a busy area, the retractable leashes are not the best option at all. They certainly have their place. I'm not one of those people who say there's no time and place for a retractable lead. Burn them all. But they definitely have some nuance to using them properly.
Right, yes.
And that includes making sure that you're not becoming a tripping line for someone too. You know, if you're in a busy park and there's bikes and kids running and things like that. Ugh.
Right. Yes. I think I saw a video recently of a dog on a flexi suddenly running out after a bike, and the person on the bike swerving and falling off the bike. And
oh dear.
Yeah. And then the person with the dog yelling at the person on the bike. Like, it was like quite a funny video that someone caught. Yes. But not funny in that it should have happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. I got a horrible burn from a retractable leash once with my Rottweiler Quincy.
Right.
I remember it so, I just got that tingle in my body thinking about it because it was a really bad burn.
Yes.
She had spotted something. I was turning around to lock the door because I was taking her for a walk and I had her on a flexi, and she spotted something. I can't even remember at this point what it was. And just instinctually, I reached out and grabbed the line to stop it instead of trying to lock the flexi. And like, I don't know why. I should have just let it, like, it wasn't.
Right. It feels like fire as it goes through your hand.
Oh,
yes.
yeah, it was awful. Just that nylon burn. Actually, I think I probably still have a scar from that. I think that mark right there is from that.
Well, anyways. I was at the vet clinic yesterday, and of course, there was one person at the vet clinic with a little Shih Tzu on a flexi, and they called a person into a waiting, like to a little exam room, and they didn't close the door, and the man let his little Shih Tzu dog walk right into the exam room where the golden retriever had just gone in.
Oh, my.
Yeah, and I'm like, what? And the man, look, he just wants to say hi. And I'm like watching this whole thing unfold and thinking, like, that golden could have the most, like, horrible disease.
Yeah.
And now you're letting your little, Shih Tzu come in there?
Well, and the thing that gets me about those situations is you probably didn't say, hey, can my Shih Tzu come and say hi?
Yeah.
You probably just let the dog wander in and do its thing. And I can't even imagine ever doing that.
No, I can't either. Like, I'm glad Honda and I were at the other side of the clinic because Honda wasn't feeling well, and the last thing he would have needed is that little dog in his face. Honda had a little collapsing episode yesterday and had to be put on oxygen. So the last thing he would have wanted was that dog in his face. So
yeah, hopefully Honda is feeling better today.
He's much better today. Yes, he's got good care at his vet clinic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Yes, for anyone who's listening, Honda will be 16 in July, so he's getting up there.
Yeah,
yes.
He is, but he's still young and spry and tough, right, Honda? He's asleep now.
He's deaf too,
and he deserted me as well.
He did. Yes,
he went back to your couch.
Yes. He's very fickle, very fickle.
It seems like it. That's what I was thinking about him. Okay, so the physical exercise part. I mean, and I love all those things that you do. I do very similar things. I also do a lot of different training skills with my dogs. I do a lot of field work, so I might do some, lining drills. I might do some casting drills. I might be doing some nose work drills. Like, there's all sorts of things that I will do to promote that bond that we have, as well as get the dog some physical exercise. And I like to try to combine my physical exercise and my mental exercise at the same time.
That's an excellent idea, yes.
That's really going to give the dog all the needs being met, right? So let's talk a little bit about the mental exercise, because a lot of the times this is also very, very underrated by people.
Right, yes.
Especially people with puppies. They think that they need to physically tire the puppy out, when really what they need to do is mentally tire the puppy out. So
I like to mention it too. Like, it's like with our children. If our children are getting overstimulated and crazy, we don't think, well, let's just run them out.
Isn't that what you're supposed to do?
Right, yeah.
Instead, you put them on a line and like just let them lunge
running
in a circle around you or something.
Free
Free range children. Come on. What do we do?
Instead, what we'll do is like, you know what? Let's do some coloring. Let's play with Play-Doh. Let's get out a different craft. Let's sit and look at your train and try to build your train. We try to bring them down with a very thinking exercise.
Yeah.
And that's going to calm them and help them.
Yeah.
So, at night, the last thing I want to do is, throw a ball around for my child to play with.
Well, it also adrenalizes the child, though, too, right?
Yes.
And it forces them into that overstimulated state. And then it's hard to come down from that, right? If you think about, if I were to ever do something like go and run a marathon, I certainly wouldn't be taking a nap right after.
Right.
That would be a really hard thing to do.
I think you'd be falling on the ground afterwards, though, but you'd be wide awake.
I think I'd be falling on the ground at the start line.
Yeah. Help me. Val and I did a dog and human rough mutter.
Oh, okay.
One of the rough, it was years ago.
Cool.
And I had my Malinois Sabre, and Val had Checkers, I think, her border collie, or maybe Nike. And I remember they set you off like kind of one at a time, like maybe every 2 or 3 minutes. So out I went with Sabre, and it was hard. Like it was climbing over hay bales and climbing through hay bales and wading through like a swamp. And I can't remember how many kilometers it was, but like it was quite. And I remember when Val and I finished, I remember us just laying on this hill. Like it seemed like hours. I'm sure it wasn't. But we just laid there. Like we didn't fall asleep. We just were like, yeah.
We're still so done.
Right. Yeah. We're so done. We're so done.
Yes. Oh, that's funny.
Mm-hmm.
So you finished it?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
I passed some people too.
Did you?
Yeah.
Nice.
And their dogs. I think, I had a Malinois who was, and some people didn't have maybe quite as athletic of a breed and were struggling a little bit more with some of the tasks, like with your dog. Mm-hmm. Like some dogs had to get lifted over and through things, whereas the Malinois could kind of just do that.
Gotcha.
So there was some tasks that were a little bit more difficult.
They certainly are athletic. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness.
Like I think I would have not passed anyone if I'd had my Corgi, just because the Corgi would have needed more help. They were super athletic little dogs, but this obstacle course was tough.
Yeah. Well, and those little legs have some
little
limitations
legs,
to them as well. I mean, they're bred that way on purpose.
Right.
So that they can stay lower than the cow hooves and quickly get out of the way of that. But I'm sure it would have its challenges in day-to-day life. So what were some of the big challenges that you had with that?
With the rough mutter?
Just out of curiosity. No, with the short-legged Corgi.
Oh, the short-legged Corgi.
Do you remember anything that was really like, oh my gosh, I'll never get this breed again because...
Oh, well... One of the reasons I didn't have the Corgis again was because of one of them herniated a disc in his back. And I lived in a house with a lot of stairs. So I ended up having to carry him constantly up and down stairs after that. And so if I had a lot of stairs, I wouldn't get a Corgi. If I had minimal stairs, then definitely. But it's a breed you want to keep in good physical shape.
Yeah.
And you want to keep them thin too. You don't want to mess with their backs.
No, and that was a sad story. I was expecting some funny stuff like, he couldn't reach to push my shopping cart.
Oh yeah. Couldn't reach the pedals on the car when he was driving.
Yeah, there you go. That's a problem.
Right, yes.
That's a big problem in so many ways. Alrighty, so back to the mental exercise thing. So things like tricks, right? Things like obedience training.
Right.
Other types of training. It doesn't even have to be obedience. If you're like, you know what, I just want the foundation. I want my dog to listen, and then that's it. I'm not doing any more obedience training after that. Look into something that trips your trigger.
Right.
There's so many great activities you can do with your dog, and you don't even need to do them formally.
Right.
Like you can easily pick up some nose work skills and go and sniff areas. No, have your dog sniff areas. You can easily pick up some nose work skills and teach your dog how to search for items.
Right.
And I will tell you, that is one of the most satisfying activities that I have found for my dogs in terms of what will make them content and tire them out. Just like that.
Right.
It's the nose work. I believe it is because they use their entire body in this and their brain as well, right?
And it's something they do naturally.
Yes.
So we're not asking them to do something foreign. This is something that will come naturally to your dog.
Yes. You just need to put it on some sort of stimulus control so that you can say, okay, search for what, and then tell me when you find it, right? Like those are the skills really that you need to have a good nose work dog, and then just experience with things. But truly, these are things you can do at home, very informally.
Something even basic is I'll take a handful of their kibble and I'll toss it out into my lawn and say, go find them all.
Kibble scramble.
Yeah, kibble scramble. Or sometimes we have Cheerio scrambles too in the house. And yes. I'll sit on the couch.
The humans too?
No, the humans aren't involved. But sometimes I'll sit on the couch and I'll have a bowl of Cheerios, and it's like I toss one that way, and I'm watching TV, then I toss one that way, and then I toss one over there. And it would be funny because the two of them, Atari and Honda, would be rushing all around the house looking to where these Cheerios were. They'd bounce under the end tables and in different spots. But yeah, they had to use their nose. They used their vision too, but it was fun for them. But
absolutely.
Yeah, but a kibble hunt in the grass is a good thing for them to do as well.
It is, absolutely. I will often feed my dogs in that way, and especially Levon, because he is a hoover.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And I mean, I could do like the slow feeder bowls or treat balls or things like that, but I just do scrambles, and
Right, yeah.
they're more than happy with that. And
Yeah.
it gives them an opportunity to work out their nose
Right.
and work out their brain a little
Yes.
bit. Yeah.
I find with Honda being so elderly now, and he can't do a whole lot with his heart condition, but he has a snuffle mat, and he does love that.
Yeah.
And I didn't use it much when they were younger, but I find
I
I'm
love
using
that
it
for an older dog.
Yeah, it's a good activity for an elderly dog because
Yeah.
he's rewarding himself. He's using his nose, and it's not a big physical effort for him.
Yeah, it
Yes.
just made me think of 15-year-old Reggie,
Right.
You know, toddling along, and his back end started to
Mm-hmm.
get weak. That was one of the big reasons that we let him go.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get emotional here,
Oh.
but yeah, the snuffle mat would have been perfect for him. I
Right.
didn't ever actually invest in a snuffle mat, but I would do kibble scrambles out in the yard for him, and just
Right.
a small area
Right,
for
yeah.
him. Whereas with Ned, as Ned was a much younger dog, I would do a big toss.
Right,
So
yes.
he had to pretty much work the whole yard. I would just let Reggie clean up his little kibble scramble in a smaller area, and
Right.
he loved it. And it was
Yes.
such good exercise for a little old dog. And
Right.
you know, he was deaf; he couldn't hear anymore. He would still do all sorts of tricks and things like that, but yeah, it had limitations, just like with Honda
Right,
and
yeah.
his hearing now at this point too. He
Yes.
pretends he's deaf. No, just kidding.
Another fun activity I did with Atari also herniated a disc. I know it's just bad luck. I don't
Yeah.
do anything crazy with my dogs. It's just bad luck. I've
Well,
had
she had a
she had some
predisposition to it as well, right?
Yeah, she had she was born with a tail that was completely corkscrewed up like a bulldog's, not like a long shelty tail. And when we had X-rays done, there was twisting in her spine. Her back legs weren't even as well. So I sort of knew going into it with her that we may have some issues. So when she herniated a disc, the vet felt it would be very easy for her to herniate another. Oh. And I know retrieving, it can be very tough on a dog's back. So when you
Definitely.
throw out a ball, it's very tough on the dog to dive on the ball and twist and turn. So I didn't want to do that with her anymore, but I still wanted her to be able to play. So I bought one of those kids' kind of plastic beach balls. You can get them at Walmart. They're
Yeah.
not like a balloon, but they're heavier. And I taught her to
Like
push
a vinyl.
a vinyl ball, yeah. And I taught her to push that along with her nose. And she loved that game.
I
She
bet
loved
that would
it.
appeal to her
Yep.
herding instincts. I bet.
So I would kick it, and then she would, run after it and get it under her nose, and she'd twist and run and, I'll have all this fun with this ball. And she would roll it right back to me for me to
Okay.
kick out again.
Aw.
And so that's another fun thing to do, is teaching your dog to get a big ball or even a big yoga ball and teach your dog to push it along.
Yeah,
Yes.
especially if you have a herding breed that really needs an outlet for that. And
Yes.
anywhere that we can take the breed tendency and fulfill that,
Right.
oh man, that is a powerful thing. And as a good leader for your dog, it makes you an incredible resource, right?
Yes.
Like, oh, you bring the sheep, quote unquote, right?
Right.
Or you bring the ducks in
Right.
in the situation that I have.
Yes.
I bring the ducks
Right.
with my sporting breeds, you know?
Yes.
I
So
mean,
those make happy dogs.
absolutely.
Because we're not just walking them down the street. We're giving them engagement.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're appealing to all their senses with our exercise and our mental stimulation.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking to their nature so much. I love that.
Right,
I
yes.
love that.
And-
I love the natural instinct of
Yes.
the dog.
And doing that is very fulfilling. People who just go to a dog park and let their dogs run with other dogs, they're missing out on that.
They really are.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially if that is really what they do, or if they, stand on the sidelines watching their phone.
Right. Yes.
Scrolling on their phone
Yes.
while their dog's out getting the physical exercise. But
Right. So and that leads to a dog too that it can be part of the family and can do things with the family.
Yeah.
They've had lots of engagement and they've had lots of training, and they can take cues from the owners well. And that's a dog that can go places.
Yeah,
You can take
absolutely.
them camping. You can take them to the cottage. You can go on great big hikes with them. So-
yeah, I'll tell you, my vacations are typically planned around my dogs. Like if we're renting a cottage as a family, it's got to be a dog friendly cottage, right?
yeah.
Otherwise, Shannon can't go.
Right, yeah.
Auntie Pooh can't go. That's what I get called.
My honeymoon actually was to the Bermuda dog shows. And
yeah.
I got married. Dog was in the wedding pictures. Loaded the dog into a crate that night. Off we went to Bermuda. Flew to Bermuda. I trialed her at the Bermuda dog shows as got her CD, and then we spent the rest of the week and a half enjoying our honeymoon with the dog there.
Perfect.
Then flew her home. So,
perfect.
Yes,
that's my kind.
Yeah,
of
I got
honeymoon.
married just to go to the Bermuda
There
dog
you go.
shows. Yes.
Oh my gosh. That's funny. But it's so true. We want our dogs to be part of our lives, right?
Right.
They're part of the family.
Yes.
I can't imagine leaving my dogs out of things.
Right.
And that's not to say that it's bad if you
Right.
decide to take a family vacation away from your
Yes.
dog and you leave your dog with a trusted somebody to take care of them.
Right,
Like,
because sometimes
that's
you
okay.
do. Like when my son graduated from university last year, we had to travel to Cape Breton Island from Ontario.
Ty.
And it just wasn't feasible to bring dogs with us for his graduation. That was his day, not really the dog's day. So they stayed with trusted people. But but other times the dogs are always going to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that makes me happy too.
Yes. Oh,
when
it
I'm at a
does.
cottage, if I don't have a dog diving off the dock
Right.
to get bumpers incessantly all day, I don't know what I'm doing there.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
I can't imagine. But yeah, being able to be part of the family and not just for big vacations, but the family goes to the park on a Saturday afternoon.
Right.
The family goes to a fair. The family goes to whatever.
Right.
If the dog can come because they have good manners
Right.
and because they have good training under their belt, that's going to make everybody happy.
Right,
I
yes.
would think.
Well, I just mentioned a couple weekends ago, I went to a craft brewery, and they were having a Sunday afternoon where you could bring your dogs in.
That's so cool.
And I didn't bring Honda that day, but we went for the afternoon because it's more fun to go when there's dogs. And I was impressed at how well behaved all the dogs were. And I thought, wow, these dogs are having a great afternoon.
Yeah.
While the owners are, having a beer and chatting and getting out and seeing different things, whereas other dogs are, locked in a crate in their house or, locked in the backyard.
Yeah.
These dogs are getting out and doing stuff because their owners
Exactly.
cared to train them.
Yeah, absolutely. What impressed me about that place, you were telling me about that before, and they had some good rules surrounding the dogs,
Yes.
right?
So dogs had to be on a 6-foot leash, no flexies, and dogs were
idea.
not allowed to socialize. So when you come in, you're not having to say to people, no. Nobody's dog was allowed to socialize. If a dog was barking, they would ask you to leave. That was one of the rules. And I noticed the dog did come in that was a little out of control, a little bit goofy. And I liked right away the bartender. She came out from behind the bar and went right to that man and took his order and kind of helped him get the dog settled.
Nice.
So I think there was some dog knowledge in the staff there.
It sounds like it.
But I thought, wow, it was a good place to go. So I
Yeah.
definitely will go back.
I wonder if they had originally started something, I wonder if they had come to Canada with the idea of opening a pub, because this is not something that is typical for us.
Right, yes.
But, over in
Europe,
Ireland
yeah.
and, all sorts of places over in
It's
Europe.
very normal.
It's complete. It's like just a Tuesday afternoon, right?
Yes.
And the dogs are all, it seems like that from
Right.
images and stories and things that I've read. It seems like they're all like, oh, hey, Fred over there.
Right.
And then they go about their own
Yes.
business, right? They're not just like, another dog. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh,
Right,
oh my
yes.
gosh, I have to go play,
I wonder, it'd be interested to know if in Europe, if they don't have dog parks, maybe.
Oh,
Because dogs,
I don't know.
It's dogs that often habit dog parks that are the ones that
Yeah.
are trying to get to other dogs to play.
Well, we have such a different idea of socialization in North America, and it's
Yes.
unfortunate because it's not what usually makes dogs happy.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you that. It definitely doesn't usually make people happy. I mean, there might be a small window where our dogs are young, where they're happy to greet a strange dog on the street.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There might be a small population of dogs who are always going to be dog social.
Mm-hmm.
But the overwhelming majority of dogs, once they are past that adolescent time in their life, they become very selective.
Right.
They don't want to say hello to every dog out there on the street. It's very unnatural for them
Yes.
to mingle with strange dogs. And in North American culture, it seems like we want to force that interaction. I
Right.
actually wrote an article many years ago about the problem with dog-to-dog play. And it's not the actual play itself. It's the obsessive nature that we think our dogs need that
Right.
play. Things like daycare and dog parks and all these things, they didn't really exist when I was a kid.
No, they didn't.
I mean, kid daycare, did,
Right,
but
yeah.
dog daycare.
Right,
I don't
yes.
remember.
I
remember
wonder-
that being a very recent advent.
I wonder too if it's the North American dog breeds that are most popular, such as Labradors and Goldens, are breeds that are generally more gregarious and do play more often with other dogs.
Yeah, that's an interesting
Yeah,
thought.
like if we all had like Jack Russell Terriers, or terriers, it would be different because terriers don't always get along well with other dogs.
Yeah.
But our popular breeds are breeds that are usually dog social.
Yeah. I'm very curious now. I think I'm going to have to find out if there are dog parks over in Europe, if that's a thing over in Europe, or if that's really just something
here.
Yeah. Very interested in that. All right. Back to what makes dogs happy. So that forced socialization, that idea that every dog is going to overstimulate me often ends up in a very unhappy dog and a very unhappy human. And that's because, of course, we do have to have rules at some point.
Right.
There are going to be some dogs that your dog cannot go and visit. Yep. And that often creates frustration in the dog that expects to go and visit or expects to go and play with every dog in the dog park, etc.
Right.
So,
yeah, because we often hear people say, sorry, I just jumped right in.
Please do. Yeah.
That their dog's going crazy on leash and looking very aggressive. And they often will say, oh, he's fine if he's off leash.
Yeah.
And that's the dog that's allowed to run and play. But when they're being held back, they're getting angry. I'm trying to think of something with a human. Like, if there's an ice cream truck and someone's not letting me get ice cream, I'm going to get angry.
I would never step in front of Swanny. I would never step between Swanny and any sort of candy.
Right.
I'd get bowled over.
Yes.
Get out of my way.
Right. I want to get there. Yeah. So that's often a dog that's why they're good off leash, is because they're getting what they want.
Yeah.
They're not used to being told that, hey, you can't go. And that's how they show their.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And truly just to, keep trying to hit this point home. A well-socialized dog is a dog who can be neutral. It doesn't mean they never get to play with other dogs. Having a select group of dog friends is not a bad thing.
Right, yes.
Having rules surrounding play where you can keep the dog with you until you're ready to tell them go play.
Yes.
Maybe in this craft brewery situation, for example, we're going to sit down and we're going to eat dinner now and we're going to have our meal and you're going to chill out with us.
Right.
And then maybe you get to have a little romp after that where I say, okay, go play. And I give permission for it. Not in this case, of course, because the dogs weren't allowed to play.
Right.
But in a scenario where that's okay, maybe I go over to my friend's house and we're hanging out and we want to have dinner first, right? We don't want the dogs wrestling and clanging and having all sorts of chaos. So the dogs chill out with us while we're having dinner, and then we go outside afterwards to smoke our cigars and whatever.
Shannon and I always smoke cigars after dinner.
I go for the fattest cigar possible. I don't think I've ever smoked a cigar in my life.
I've never smoked a cigar, for sure.
I don't think I've ever even been tempted. Like,
you know
just
what?
The smell of it.
We should do that one day. Let's find a cigar bar and go.
I bet we'll be so sick. I bet
we would. Sick. I don't think I even want to try.
No, I don't think so either. We'll just look through the window from outside
at the people.
Look at these people smoking cigars. Anyway, so maybe you go outside afterwards and you tell your dog, okay, go play, and they have a little romp with their friends, right? There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
The problem is that obsessive nature that we seem to think that our dog should meet every single other dog and should go to daycare and.
Right.
And it just doesn't bode well for them. It truly doesn't. And for us either, because it impacts our relationship.
Right.
When all of these needs are met externally, you don't matter.
Right.
And it's already hard for us because we're a different species than they are.
Yes.
They're naturally drawn to their own species, to other dogs, of course. That's a very natural thing for a young dog. And we set the tone, right? If we set the habit to be, you see another dog, you get to play. You see another dog, you get to engage and interact with them. Pretty soon it becomes an obsessive trait and we cease to really matter and exist.
Yes.
So. All right. We have talked about so much today. So what else makes a dog happy?
A healthy dog.
A healthy dog.
A healthy dog. So a dog that is getting regular veterinary checkups and a dog that is being groomed properly too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's a big one too, especially we have such a population of doodles now.
Right.
And the doodle code I find is very misunderstood.
You know what? 20 years ago, we wouldn't even known what a doodle was.
No,
like,
it's
doodle?
true.
What are you talking
about? It's true.
about?
We had cockapoos.
Yeah.
We had cockapoos. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They started the whole thing, and now there's doodle craze.
Doodle everything's.
Yes,
everything. The doodle craze, yes.
Yeah. For sure. But yeah, that coat is very misunderstood in all of the years now that we've been seeing doodles. I've seen so many that have such matting.
Right.
You know, we hear from groomers and vets all the time that these coats need constant maintenance.
Yes.
I think the idea that they're potentially hypoallergenic, which, you know, you would have to really drill down on the doodle to doodle breeding to make sure that you're actually getting a hyperallergenic goat, if it's even possible.
Right. I think I would just buy a breed that is proven to be non-shedding. Like if someone
a hair rather than a shed.
Yeah. Like if someone like Honda is 100% non-shedding, like nothing comes off him.
Yeah.
It's
gotta be so nice. Yeah. You have no hair on your pants.
I know. I've never have dog hair anywhere.
Wow.
But one of the reasons we got him was Ty had childhood asthma. And we already had a shedding breed. And I remember his asthma doctor said, I was thinking about getting another dog, and I'd mentioned it. And he said, you're crazy to bring another shedding breed into your house with a child with asthma. He goes, you need to get something non-shedding. So, and he said, even then there's no chance. So we went with a small non-shedding breed. I wouldn't have chanced a doodle because I my son had asthma. Now he outgrew it by the time he was... like probably around the time we got Honda, he was outgrowing it, and
good.
No allergies now because we've had shedding dogs, well after, and all's been fine. But if someone in your family has allergies, get a dog that 100% is going to be non-shedding.
Yeah, absolutely. And even then, it can sometimes be, from what I understand, I've never suffered from allergies, knock on wood. But from what I understand, it can be a bit of a crapshoot as well because it can be dander, right?
Yeah, and it can also be saliva you're allergic to.
Yes, you've told me that before, and I keep forgetting that fact. But
because I'm allergic to cat saliva.
Oh, I'm just allergic to cats, period.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm not really. I'm
allergic to cat saliva.
My mother had cats. My mother had lots of cats, and I always wanted a dog. So I've sort of I don't know, I've put this negativity towards the cat's face, but if it's not the cat's fault.
If a cat licks me, I'll get itchy and red, maybe a little hive. Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Huh.
Also, if a bird walks on me. So if there was a cockatiel here and it was walking on my arm, I would get little raised red itchy dots where it's kind of nails dug in.
Oh. Yeah. What if it was like a Canada goose walking on you?
I don't know. They have like flippers for feet. So
the flipper feet.
I don't know. Just like cockatiels, I've noticed when they go on my arm. Yeah.
What about an ostrich? What if an ostrich walks?
I don't know. I think their feet are... Don't they have giant claws?
They have giant everything. So I think they have ostrich races.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. I think you could ride an ostrich. Yeah. I don't want an ostrich to walk on me or perch on my arm.
When you first said a bird walk, again, this is my literal brain. Right. When a bird's walking on me, I was like, huh? Like I just couldn't grasp it. And then I was like, oh yeah, people have birds in their house sometimes.
I got bit by a seagull. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this. Ty and I were feeding... the seagulls, I think it was French fries. I know we're not supposed to do that, but we were at the beach and the seagulls were swarming and we were feeding them French fries or pieces of bread or something like that. And they were quite brave seagulls. So I was holding out bread and they would come and they'd fly and you could feel the air from their wings and they would take it from your hand, like snatch it from your hand. And I was putting it on my shoe and they'd take it off my shoe. And Ty was very young, like maybe 3, and he's just standing beside me.
You guys were having a blast.
We were having a good time. And then all of a sudden, when the bird went to take the bread out of my hand, it also got my finger. Ooh. And it pulled, and it thought my finger was the bread. So it tugged on my finger for a second before I could rip my finger away. And the goo that comes out of a seagull's mouth, my hand was covered in this sandy, slurry sludge stuff. And then I rubbed it all off and it was bleeding and kind of serrated and bleeding. So I rinsed it off in Lake Huron and went home. And it was at our trailer and, cleaned it up as best I could. And then we came home that day later. And the next day I woke up and it was infected and itchy as anything. And I had to go to must have been like a Sunday because I didn't go to my doctor's office. I went to a walk-in clinic and the walk-in clinic lady looked really bored and she's just sitting there and she didn't even really look up at me. She was like, yeah, how can I help you? I got bit by a seagull. And you saw her just go, what? She was like, oh, and suddenly
That's a new one.
I was like a star suddenly.
Oh my gosh.
I showed it to her. She's like, oh, and yeah, so it was infected and I was having an allergic reaction to it. So I think I'm allergic to bird saliva too.
Wow.
But yeah, don't stick your finger in a seagull's mouths. They're filthy.
Good to know.
Yes.
Good to know. Really good to know. I'll keep that in mind.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I didn't.
That
I
was
had
very
no
off
idea
topic.
You could even be. You know what? I mean, on some level, I don't even know that I knew that there was saliva in birds. I guess it makes sense, but it's never occurred to me to think about it before. And the things you learn.
Back to grooming dogs.
Oh yeah, we were talking
and keeping
about
them
dogs,
healthy.
right?
Vet checkups. Making sure they're comfortable and healthy. If you think something's off with your dog, get them into the vet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Not necessarily in a panicked way, but if if there's something, if they're like shaking their head a lot or scratching at something a lot.
Or lame.
Yeah.
A couple of times I've seen a person in our neighborhood walking a dog that's very lame on its front shoulder. And it's like, when are they going to take that dog to the vet and get that looked at?
Well, and maybe they have, and there's just not a solution for it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's definitely a concern. Like we need to, especially as our dogs age,
yes,
we need to make sure that we take care of them. We need to make sure that we check out things that are a little bit different and whatnot. I mean, Ned's at that age now. He's 8. So every time he twitches funny, I'm like, oh, what's going on?
Right.
What's happening?
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to be in this mode already because, he's only 8,
Yeah.
He's still on one level.
Right.
He's super young and super fit and super healthy, but then he's also a veteran and he's been a veteran for a year now and it just is mind boggling.
Yes.
Time just continues to fly, but yeah.
Right. And just being familiar with your dog too. So you want to know everything about them. I remember when Atari, before she became sick, she was sleeping one day and I was watching her sleep. It's one of my big entertainments. And I thought, she's breathing faster than she normally does. So I remember counting how many breaths she took and looking it up and went, that's too many breaths. Dogs, that's not right.
For an adult dog.
Yeah. And I took her to the vet and sure enough, she was filled with fluid and it was pressing on her lungs. And that's how we found out she had that mass. And she was a 6-year-old dog. With Honda now not being well, I watch his breath very quickly. And yesterday we went to the vets. I was able to tell them that, Honda right now, his resting breath rate is 36 per minute, which is high. And, and the vet said, that's good to know. So watching your dogs and knowing things about them. Yeah, really taking note.
Yeah, definitely. Changes in smell too can be indicative of a problem, whether it's breath, ears, etc. A really rank smelling poop when they normally have just like reasonable smelling stinky poop, all those things can be indicative of problems. Color of poop, color of urine, all those things are worthwhile paying attention to.
After working in an emergency vet clinic too, I always know the color of my dog's gums. Yeah, because that's one of the first things that will be off is when your dog's not well at all, their gums will turn bluish or gray. Yeah,
or even white can be an indication that there's a problem there.
I remember when Cowboy had cancer, and I remember the day I knew it was the day to let her go, I remember opening up her mouth and her gums were just deathly gray. And I thought, you know what, So constantly look at your dog's gums so you know their color.
Yeah, absolutely. And always, the earlier we can catch anything, the easier it is for them to deal with. Dogs can be so stoic when it comes to pain. Oh, they are, yes. Yeah, Ned's terrible for being super stoic, and I'm quite sure that's why I'm twitchy now every time he takes a funny breath, is because when he went down, he had a prostate issue a couple of years ago now. It's probably about a year and a half ago. He had a prostate issue come up, and it came up so suddenly for me because there was really no warning signs. He was urinating just fine all the way up until the day that he went down. He was pooping. He ate breakfast happily the day of. Right. And then about 10 minutes after that, he was like, nope, I'm not good. Right. And it was very obvious at that point, but it hadn't been at all up to that point. Right. So stoic. And it had been building for long enough that there should have been signs, but there weren't. And there often aren't. Dogs are hardwired to hide that sort of thing so they don't look weak. Right. And
they're not like people, because we're like, oh, my knee hurts. Oh,
I have a headache.
Yeah, my finger hurts. Whereas dogs don't tell you when something hurts.
No. They do not. They just weather it.
Yes.
So, that was cute little gymnastics moves. Right. Honda. Yes. So regular trips to the vet. You know, a yearly checkup isn't a bad thing. I like to do blood work with my dogs every year, and they don't necessarily have vaccinations that they need every year. I space them out to the 3-year interval, which is generally accepted in North America these days. But I like to just make sure that there's nothing different. And the best thing that comes of it is if something does happen to come up, I have a good baseline. I have a good recent baseline for what my dog's blood work normally is. If they normally have, creatine levels that are a little bit high, I know that about the dog already.
Right.
It's not something that's going to factor in if something comes up and they're having a hard time. I'm not going to worry about those levels because I know that they're always a little bit high, right?
Yes.
That information is just really good to know,
Right.
especially when our dogs can't say, my tummy hurts
Right.
or my head hurts or my paw hurts
Right.
or whatever the case may
Yes.
be. So
Yes.
keep them well vetted,
Yeah.
and they will be happy dogs
Exactly.
too. So
Yes.
anything else you think makes a happy dog?
Well, I think we've touched on a lot of things.
We
One
have.
thing I want to talk about is a lot of people get a dog and expect the dog will cuddle with them.
Oh, this is,
Yes. And some dogs are cuddly by nature, but many dogs are not cuddly by nature.
Yeah.
And many dogs will try to avoid being cuddled.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that they don't love you or anything like that. It just means they're not cuddly.
Absolutely.
So don't force a dog to cuddle. Don't expect a dog's going to cuddle. If you want something that's always going to cuddle with you, get a stuffed animal.
Yeah. Or get a Swanny. Swanny loves to cuddle. Loves to cuddle.
But yeah, a lot of dogs. It's funny. I have a classic picture that shows. It's of Ty, my son, when he was about 8 or 9, and Honda and Cowboy, and Ty's sitting, and he's got his arms around both dogs. And Cowboy was not a cuddly dog. She really. Yeah, like patting and that didn't really mean much to her. She was a sight hound. And in the picture, Honda's just sitting straight, Ty's sitting, Cowboy's leaning away. And she's just doing this subtle lean, like, you know what? I don't want to cuddle. I don't want to be. And it was just for a split second while a photo was taken. But every time I look at it, I go, Cowboy didn't like to cuddle. And I can see it in that picture.
Well, and it's a lot of pressure.
Yes.
It's a lot of pressure if the dog doesn't want you in their space to begin with because they're that more independent dog or they don't necessarily like that snuggly stuff.
Yep.
It's a lot of pressure to put on them.
Right.
And, it's not going to make your relationship better by trying to force it.
Right.
So guess who likes to snuggle?
Ned?
No,
Levon, yeah.
And I love it. I love it because Ned is not snuggly at all. And I'm like you. I respect the dog's preference for that. There are things that I need to do. I need to be able to handle you. I need to be able to groom you. I need to be able to clip your toenails. I like to pet you because, who doesn't like to pet a dog if you like dogs? But I know that Ned doesn't like his head pet. He tolerates it because he's a good dog. But he puts his little ears back a little bit and you can just tell he's like, nah, I got to tolerate this thing again. So it's not something I overwhelm him with because I don't want it to impact our relationship negatively.
Right.
Because if he finds it aversive to be pat on the head, every time I pet him on the head, I'm effectively correcting him.
Yes.
And for what? For him just existing and being sweet and wanting to, he likes to be near me, but not touching.
Right.
Whereas Levon's like, okay, let me in your lap.
Right.
Let me lay on my back in your lap.
Right.
You can rub my tummy a little bit. I'll hang out forever.
Oh,
I love it. It's bliss.
Right.
It's nice to have that balance.
Right.
Yes. Because if I had 2 tollers in my lap,
too many tollers.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just too hard to exist. So, yeah, 1 toller's good.
So don't feel, if your dog doesn't want to cuddle with you, don't feel it's about you. It's about the dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And we have to do what's right for the dog, not what's right for our emotions.
Yes. Oh, that is so bang on the money and a great note to go out on. On that one, I'm Instructor Shannon.
Instructor Swanny.
Happy training.
The McCann Dogs Podcast is brought to you by McCann Professional Dog Trainers. We help dog owners to have a well-behaved, 4-legged family member. Please give us a call at 905-659-1888 or visit us at mccanndogs.com. Happy training!